All right, good afternoon and welcome to our channel. Today, I want to go through some of the procedural steps to add or remove a person from your Section 8 voucher, and we're going to go through some of the steps that may be required under federal rules to do so. But before we get started, my name is Jay. I'm the owner of Section8Consulting.com, and today I'm going to present those options to you. But before I do, let me bring up some additional information about our company. And I'm going to move myself around in the picture here. And there we go. So I'm going to move my face off to the right. And as you can see up here, we've got a phone number, our company website, as well as email for those that need help. I worked at the federal level for nearly 26 years helping clients, roughly about 20,000 or more. We do also deal with several hundred landlords, as well as other organizations, including legal aid society, and sometimes law firms and court systems. But beyond that, let's get on to the primary part here. I'm going to bring up notes as I do in all my videos these days. This is to help you guys out. And also, I realize people have learning disabilities, and some people may find that I move a little quickly, but I like to keep the videos very short. So I'm going to post these notes as well in the comment section and description. Starting off here, one thing we're going to go over is the actual adding of family members to the Housing Choice Voucher and how it's possible. So federal regulations require the PHA or Public Housing Authority to approve the composition of every assisted household. Allowing an unauthorized person to live in a unit can be treated as a program violation and may place the family's voucher at risk. And again, we're talking about the Housing Choice Voucher. This can also be applied to those that are receiving tenant-based housing, subsidies, and many other housing programs. So at play here is going to be the central rule under Title 24, CFR 982.551, subpart B. The family must promptly report the birth, adoption, or court-awarded custody of a child. Number two, the family must request a PHA's approval before adding any other family members. In regards to foster children and live-in aides, must also receive PHA or Public Housing Authority approval. When a family member moves out or the family must promptly report that change as well. No unapproved person may use the assisted unit as their residence. Let's be clear, guys. Many different leases, as well as different state or state policies, can spell out the fact that you may not have a guest more than a week or 2 weeks. So you need to check that, make sure after that they're considered a resident in your property. Okay. HUD summarizes the rule by stating that births, adoptions, and court-awarded custody must be reported, while any other household addition requires the Public Housing Authority's approval. And you can go over those particular details in the linkage we're going to provide, which is going to be HUD's Housing Choice Voucher Tenant Guide. Okay, that'll be helpful in some respects. So who can potentially be added? Well, a household may request to add somebody such as a spouse, domestic partner, an adult child, a minor child returning to the household, a parent, sibling, grandparent, or other relative, a foster child or a foster adult, court-placed child, a live-in aide, and in some cases, an unrelated person who will become part of the assisted family. The approval is not automatic merely because a person is related related to the voucher holder, except for reported births, adoptions, and court-awarded custody. And the PHA generally reviews and approves those proposals in addition before that person moves in. So a step-by-step process as it goes here is, number one, you got to read the PHA's administrative plan. As I've mentioned in many videos, the PHA's administrative plan can usually be found on the Public Housing Authority's website. If not, you may do a Freedom of Information Act, address that to in-house counsel or the manager, and then request the administrative plan digitally. If you don't say digitally, then they're going to charge you several $100s for printing it out through a Xerox machine. Moving on from there, every housing authority establishes local procedures for reporting housing changes. Those administrative plans may specify some of the following. Keep in mind that every PHA in the nation has a different plan that is approved. They file and get approved through HUD. It means rules can be very different from one PHA or Public Housing Authority to another. That's why it's important to have a copy of the administrative plan. So we're going to move on to the options here. The request form that must be completed, the reported deadline, documents that must be submitted, screening requirements, occupancy standards when the rent change becomes effective, whether the landlord approval is required, and grounds for approving or denying an adult addition. Moving on from there, some PHAs require Changes to be reported within 10 days. Keep in mind those changes sometimes can be shorter or longer. Again, the administrative will spell out the language in terms of what they approve or would allow. While others use different deadlines, follow the written policy instead of relying on verbal information from a caseworker. As always, remind you guys, make sure you get something in writing, whether by mail or email. Conversations in in-office visits are insufficient as a material record. Okay. Number two, submit a written request for anyone other than the child added through birth, adoption, or court-ordered custody. Submit a written request before the person moves into the unit. The request should include the following: head of household's name, the assisted address, voucher or client identification number, proposed member's full legal name, the date of birth, social security when required, relationship to the head of household, reason for requesting the addition, the proposed move-in date, current address of the proposed member, all income and asset information, and also a request for a written decision. Keep in mind, you always need to ask them for a decision as soon as possible. Number three, obtaining a landlord approval when required. PHA's approval and landlord approval are not necessarily the same thing, and thus the lease may require the owner to approve an additional occupant or add a person to the lease. The owner may also conduct a lawful tenant screening. Therefore, they have to meet the same regulations under contract, which is that tenant's lease. Therefore, the family may need the following: a written PHA approval, written owner or property management approval, a revised lease or lease addendum, which is a revision to the first lease you had, and do not assume the approval by one party automatically constitutes approval by another. In other words, just because your landlord goes for it doesn't mean the PHA or Public Housing Authority is going to agree to this. Number four, provide the requested documentation. The PHA may also request the following: birth certificate, social security documentation, government issued identification, citizenship, eligible immigration status documents, marriage certificate, adoption or custody orders, foster care placement documents, employment verification and recent pay stubs, Social Security, SSI, pension, unemployment, and benefit letters, bank statements and asset statements, child support information, student status verification, prior subsidized housing history, consent and release forms, and information needed for criminal or sex offender screening. Again, the notes for all of this will be in the description and the comments section, so you don't need to race through with a pen, okay? And keep notes. Moving on from there, HUD's guidance provides that most new household members must disclose and document their Social Security number before being added. A child under 6 who does not yet have a Social Security number may generally be added first, with documentation supplied within 90 days. A further 90-day extension may be available when delays beyond the family's control. And for that, you want to reference HUD's eligibility and determination guide. I'll link that up as well to help you guys out. Number five, complete screening and eligibility review. The PHA may review the following: identity and social security number, citizenship and eligible immigration status, income and assets, previous housing assistance, money owed to the housing authority, previous program terminations, criminal history under applicable PHA policies, in other words, public housing authorities administrative plan, lifetime sex offender registration if you have one or not, whether the addition would violate any occupancy restriction by the landlord, and whether the person is already receiving another housing subsidy. That's called fraud. Beyond that, unless that other person isn't closed that out, just as an exception there. So number six, for written approval, the safest practice is to wait until all necessary approvals have been issued in writing before the person does the following: moves belongings into the unit. So never move in before you have approval or have that person move in. Receives mail that there is a resident, uses the address identification or benefit records, regularly sleeps at the unit, treats the unit as their primary residence. A person is not necessarily an authorized household member merely because the family submitted an application to add them, okay? They don't think that squatter laws are going to help you with this. Great way to get yourself banned. They're not going to buy the squatter game. Special situations, birth, adoption, and court-awarded custody. The family does not ordinarily need advanced PHA approval for before the event occurs, but the change must be reported promptly. The PHA will update the family and the composition and determine whether the rent, deductions, voucher size, and unit requirements must change. Okay, so things are going to change. When you add people, it's going to change everything. Marriage does not create an automatic approval. Just because you get married don't mean you can shack up and play house, okay? The housing authority does require you to report, regardless of that marriage certificate. Getting married does not automatically add a spouse to a voucher. The participant should report the marriage and request approval before the spouse residencies. Before it establishes residency in an assisted unit. Assisted meaning you're receiving a voucher and you're receiving government assistance in the form of that voucher. The spouse's income and assets will generally be considered the PHA, reconsidered when the PHA recalculates the family assistance. Anytime you add anybody over 18, they're going to look at what they make, and that's going to change the calculations of what you get and what you don't get. Adult children returning home. So, as an adult child has previously lived in the household, normally cannot simply move back into the unit. The family should submit a new request. The adult child may have to complete a screening, provide income, asset, identity, and God dog, I'm having a rough one today, citizenship information. And so we go on to foster children and foster adults. Foster children and foster adults are treated differently from the ordinary family members for certain income and program calculations. The PHA approval is still required. The family should provide documentation from the placement agency or court. Now we move on to living aides. Living aides is not added as an ordinary family member. A qualifying aide is someone that provides the following: is essential to the care or well-being of an elderly or near elderly or disabled person, is not legally obligated to support that person, and would not live in the unit except to provide the necessary supportive services. This is a very contentious subject matter because PHA policy and federal rules provide how long a person can actually sleep and live there before they actually become a resident, okay? And there are a certain number of hours. So the PHA must approve the living aid when the aid is necessary as a reasonable accommodation for a person with a disability. However, the PHA may screen and deny a particular proposed aid for specific program related criminal reasons. A relative can potentially serve as the aid if the person generally satisfies living aid definition. For those definitions for living aid and all things great under the world of being a living aid or a care aid, Title 24 CFR, meaning Code of Federal Regulation 982.316 will help you. That'll be linked up. Important distinctions. The aide is the household member, but not an assisted family member. The aide's income is generally excluded. The aide ordinarily has no right to keep the voucher after the person receiving care leaves the program or passes away. Approval for an aide does not automatically permit the aide's spouse or children to live in the unit. That means you can't bring baggage with you, baby. It's just you. You cannot bring the whole family. And so I've got additional notes here, but to keep the video short and very concise, I'm going to add these additional notes. And then in closing here, I'm going to give you just a few tidbits. Look, guys, this is a this is a circumstance where a lot of people have issues, okay, and you can get denied. If you have a problem with a denial or you're dealing with complex issues with the PHA or Public Housing Authority not cooperating with adding or removing a person to your household, you may want to contact me. There can be other contentious issues that you may be facing, including they have adjusted your rents or bedroom size too high or too low, and you don't seem to be making any headway there. If all of your efforts have yielded not a great result, then it might be time to reach out to a professional that has nearly a quarter century of experience. You, as I've mentioned before, my number is at the top, our website, as well as our company email. Please keep in mind I'm a private solutions. That means these appointments are not necessarily free, but I offer extremely affordable pricing. So, with that being said, I've enjoyed talking with you today. Hopefully, you'll enjoy the movie, and we'll see you again. And as a closing statement, my office makes videos nearly every day of the week, but on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays at around 10 a.m. Central Standard Time, we have live chats. That's a great opportunity to ask questions without any great cost to you and no appointment. Though, if the issue is too complex, I may defer you to appointment, okay? It's been a pleasure talking with you, and I hope you have a wonderful day.